joining. We have about 25 people on the call. This is part of the OHDSI Phenotype Development Evaluation Workgroup on September 13, 2023. We are here to talk about N3C contributions to the OHDSI Phenotype Library. I'm sharing my screen right now. The N3C representatives here on the call are Harold Lemon and Andrew Williams. The purpose here is to figure out a way to get the N3C contributions to the OHDSI Phenotype Library. I provided a background to the group just before and this recording. But I'm going to give a very quick synopsis of the issue in hand. So we have the OHDSI Phenotype Library. This work group is responsible for the OHDSI Phenotype Library. The unit is cohort definition, and we want we have a lot of interest in the community to take in the contribution from N3C concept sets to the OHDSI Phenotype Library. So with that, Harold and Andrew, would you like to state the proposal?
I can set up the conversation. Harold can go into the details. I think I'm going to try to avoid the problematic identification in OHDSI of the word phenotype with the word cohort definition. I think the operational definition of the object that's needed to conduct a study using the TCs and Os that we've adopted, and that is very useful, is problematic in the confusion it creates when we apply phenotype for it in the way most people think of a distinct entity for, like, most usually a particular health condition is not helping us. I think a lot of what has been done in N3C is going with a broader sense of what a phenotype is, and I think it corresponds to how most researchers think about what they're looking for when they're trying to build a cohort definition in OHDSI terms. It's the kind of thing we need to get for sort of the scalable approach to understanding things like, how often adverse events occur and other kinds of things. We need things that aren't bound up with has 365-day look back period and excluding other kind of treatment exposures and all the other things that typically go into a cohort definition. They are more unitary and focused on a specific definition of a particular health state in a way that most people think of phenotypes for. And a lot of thought has gone into a process for looking at the very large scale OMOP data in N3C and clinically validating them and recording a lot of metadata about them, and that's the background. But Harold, you can fill in more detail.
No, it's a perfect segue, because so the good news, there's no bad news. So the good news is that in N3C we've kept that the JSON that we generate behind the scenes of our concept sets are compatible with Atlas, so that's not a problem. There's no problem. The only thing I think the only issue would be about the metadata associated with the concept sets. I personally am nuts about trying to say as much as possible. I'm sorry about the background noise. Saying as much as possible about what this concept set is, basically in natural language, in English. So we have intention, what we think the concept set is about. We have limitations, which are at the semantic level. We have issues, which are at the data level. In other words, how this concept set behaves in our data set. And finally, we have provenance, which is basically the history of how the concept set was created. We also have, and I'll say a little bit more what we mean by N3C recommended, but concept sets can also be reviewed. So we have a vocabulary review where an informatician basically is looking primarily for the false negatives, and we have clinicians reviewing the concept sets primarily for the false positives. Now the N3C, so any questions about all that so far?
Just a follow-up, Harold, about whether these ideas are documented anywhere that the community members could read outside of N3C.
That's a very good question. I wrote. I just finished writing an extensive tutorial on the concept set browser, but I have to get permission to download it. There's no identifiable information, so that would be my first to do.
Okay.
We do have an AMIA report panel submission that kind of describes N3C recommended at a high level. So those we can share as well. So that'll be my to-do when we leave. And so getting the phenotype library and our concept sets metadata in sync would be the only issue. The good news is that there are less than 100 N3C recommended, so we don't necessarily need an automatic way of doing it, but obviously if there is an automatic way, that would be preferred. And what we mean by N3C recommended, I don't want to go into the inside baseball, but basically because we have a single general disease, there's been general acceptance of a number of variables, and I'm not going to get into the variable cohort or phenotype argument, but we call them variables that most analysts doing COVID-related research should want. Many of them were defined by, or their intention was defined by either the CDC or some other bodies, and that provided the semantics for us to go in and define the concept set that we did. In defining the concept sets, especially the N3C recommended, as I said, there are about 75 of them, most of them diagnoses, but also some labs and some medications, a good number of medications. And by and large, we worked making them parsimonious so that the concept expression would be just the number of root concepts with all descendants. In some cases, we had to exclude some subtrees. In other cases, we had to do a mix of intention plus extension. I'll give an example in a minute. But so in terms of the utility of the concept, the N3C recommended beyond COVID research, a researcher would have to make the judgment that those concepts are still relevant. Another issue is that very early on in N3C, it turned out that the developer made the name of the concept set the ID of the concept set, which means that as the concept set was developed and people realized that the name was inadequate or wrong or confusing, whatever, we were kind of stuck with it. We do have an alias for the names. Those aliases are not used throughout the enclave, but it does make it for exporting. I think those would be preferred because the name more matches the intention of the concept set better. So I think those are the facts. Gowtham, anything more you would like?
I wonder, so Joanna is also on. I didn't realize Joanna was on as well. So Joanna leads the group called the Logic Liaisons within N3C, has developed a fact table that's got a lot of standard definitions of things. And I, in general, I think also just augmenting slightly what you said, Harold, about the behavior metadata that's available, I think it's just worth noting that over 80 institutions worth of data that are combined, and they can be understood and analyzed separately. And so when we talk about like how things are behaving, it's not with respect to a single institution, it's with respect to a very large, very well curated OMOPT version of data across 80 institutions. And so it's right. Noteworthy for that.
But I would
I don't know.
I would actually say that the issues, I don't even know if it should be exported because it's about the behavior in the enclave. And I don't know that generalizes. So I wouldn't, Or if we say something like most of the data is captured in 3 concepts, that's good for our analysts to know, but it may be totally irrelevant to the use guide. So
I would assume that if provenance is captured and it's known that that's the behavior that we're talking about is the behavior within N3C, then that context is needed. And I see your hand is raised. I'm sorry to not jump in front of you there, but I wanted to see also if Joanna has anything to add to the overall description that Harold and I've given.
I'm sorry, I had trouble joining because I was a few minutes late and I didn't have the new link, so I missed most of the high level description, but yeah, so I don't know what was covered to be able to add. Andrew,
Okay, all right,
I
no
can
problem.
say that, you know, as we made the code template, obviously all these derived variables rely on these concept sets. So this was really the use case that drove needing this N3C recommended set of definitions of concept sets where we had some good clinical and informatics review. If we're sharing these code templates that are producing all these variables, they need to be built on solid footing, things that the community can trust. They're just the standard kind of highly used facts that we generate for people. Things like, you know, IMB or ECMO at the time of a COVID hospitalization, and you know, these very commonly used derived variables. But it's been really nice to have this so that people can trust really what they're getting, and we're all doing the work once. It is work intensive. We're doing it once for things that are used many times instead of each group trying to do it on their own. And I guess just the biggest challenge right now is the versioning of OMOP and keeping up with that. And I've not kept up with that, and I'm not actually as up to date as Harold is on what's in the metadata that's being published out. So Harold, I know in the past, you and I have both wanted to have the version of OMOP also exported. Is that something we have now associated with these?
I can't say for sure.
Yeah, so I don't think that's been added yet. And I was just curious what this OHDSI community, what you all do when you do phenotype definition, when you're working with these shared concept sets, is that something you're taking into account? Because we really see massive implications, right, of vocab changes.
Yeah, so I thank you, Joanna. So I see Aza's hand is raised. Maybe she has some of the answers. And then after that, I would like to go back and like structure the conversations in a way that we can have some actions that we can take. Aza, go ahead.
I had questions, Gautam. I'll let you answer Joanne's question about the versioning with the vocabulary and the phenotypes. But this is very helpful. I have 3 specific questions just to help us understand to think of the pragmatic solution. One is, you mentioned that the names are not perfect representation of these concepts, but are those names still unique? So every concept would have a unique name. Could we assert that, or is there any repetition between names and corresponding IDs?
Right, concept set names are unique.
Okay, perfect. My other question is the informatics and semantic reviews of the codes. That I assume this was US centric, correct? And that's across all the concepts. So we can make sure that those codes were reviewed in terms of ICD, the corresponding US centric vocabulary. But when we map through SNOMED, there might be other vocabularies that nobody looked at. Is that true?
We use the SNOMED hierarchy.
Or we use the standard codes. So we actually do the explorations in Atlas, right?
Fully understand.
So that's why the OMOP version impacts us so much. We are not doing it in the native vocabularies,
which is fantastic. Which is this is the biggest value. But my question is, when the review happens to those codes, they are happening across all these amazing data sources that are all US centric. Just for us to understand.
Yes.
They've been harmonized to OMOP though, and so even if the source codes might be in Loinker ICD
Fully
or
understand.
whatever.
Fully understand. It's just that we have the same problem. We create phenotypes and we look at data, but when because we also US centric, we don't necessarily know what happens in a non-US data source where the SNOMED's gonna map to a different vocabulary, which might catch ideas that are different. But that's good. This is just clarification.
As an example, we do have many RX norm extension codes in our concept sets. I can't say that we're as compulsive in examining those codes because we have no data, but we do. But that's why our medication concept sets have thousands to tens of thousands of codes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so even though we might be more sensitive to errors that would impact US data because we would notice them, that doesn't mean that our exploration of Atlas or our creation of the concept set is in any way limited to those codes. So we are including, for example, when we pick a parent and descendants, we're making an evaluation with the clinicians based on the name, the concept name, to say if that is an appropriate named concept to include, not did this come from ICD originally or not? That has no bearing on it. Occasionally, as Harold said, when we have something that is very hard to, I think I caught him saying this, very hard to make a decision about, like, this is a fringe case, it's a very rare disorder, do we want to include this or not? And when we notice it has 0 cases or 1 case in our data set of 20 million patients, we then will put that in our reasoning, like this was very rare, we decided to exclude or whatever, right? So again, there's a small impact of the data source there, but pretty minor.
Perfect. And my third and last question. Yeah,
go ahead, sorry.
And then I have a third question that is for all the N3C folks, because that is very important to know what your perspective on it, and also the community members. Is the idea, are we aiming to have those in the OHDSI Phenotype Library with their metadata in the Phenotype Library, or with the solution where those the JSONs are in the OHDSI library, so people can access and use those concept sets, and then we reference the material and all the metadata that are related to those concepts, where people can access them inside NC3, whatever NC3 wants to put in the public. Is the idea to get everything in the OHDSI library so people access things within the OHDSI library only, or could we create a linkage where people access the concept set, but if they want to understand their limitations, understand their context, understand their validation, understand anything, then there is a way to go outside the OHDSI library to where things exist in the NC3 system or any other public place.
Right. So
I just, Harold, sorry, it may not be. Yes, it's not commonly known. We're in the process of putting in a contract with NCATS to support the OHDSI tool stack in N3C. Finally, it was something that N3C had and NIH IT had a hard time doing for a long time. We're actually going to do it, our team at Tufts, and we want to keep this synchronized across. So I think we want to have a set of things that have been validated with an N3C, and we want to be able to download and use the things that are in the phenotype library now that it's back up. When N3C began, the version of the phenotype library included all kinds of things that the OHDSI community did not want, did not think of as reliable and reusable. And so there was an initial effort to kind of synchronize and think about how to leverage that. And so both things have evolved in parallel and separately from one another. And I think having an official place for an OHDSI tool stack in N3C, having it be essentially a node in the OHDSI data network and a place where those are kept in sync, where we all agree on what the conditions are for calling something reliable and what the metadata needs are. I think that's the ultimate vision. There's one thing that wasn't mentioned about the provenance that's kept there, and Harold, you can add to this. I think that
I just want to clarify, right? People from the outside can't go into the enclave, but we currently export all the N3C recommended to Zenodo.
Exactly.
The exact same JSON, the exact same metadata. So you can actually go and see what we're talking about today at your own home. So we have there's some glitches in that exporting, but just about all of them are available. And Johanna, just before you came on, we were talking about what information about the concept set and N3C recommended we can share. And I was thinking of the AMIA thing that we'll be presenting, we can share, and then
Yes.
the tutorial. If I get a download request, you have the extensive tutorial. So both of those can be made available.
Yeah,
So-
and there's a DOI there
here.
that uses nesting of DOI. Sorry, Joanna, go ahead.
Oh yeah, I said we could put your tutorial in Zenodo here as well. Mhm.
All right, so I want to pivot the concept. So I think we understand the contribution, and I think the Odyssey community is very interested in accepting the contribution. We just have to figure out how to build a pipeline to make that happen. Now, what is clear from this conversation is the unit of contribution is a concept set definition, a concept set that is represented in Atlas or Web API compatible form. So it can go into like this section in Atlas. So it will be compatible as a JSON that represented here. So that's one.
I just don't know, and I apologize for not tracking where you guys are on the metadata issue, because we increasingly, most of our regular concept, we have like 9,000 concept sets that the community has developed. The vast majority of them are underdocumented, and therefore it's hard to know how to reuse them. So I just don't know where you guys are on your documentation.
I thought we went at the recommended ones. Are we talking about the whole universe or only? It depends.
I'm talking about your own library, the phenotype library itself.
Oh yeah, ours. Yeah.
My understanding is that last I checked, Atlas did not accommodate the type of metadata that we're trying to get our community to use, and that the N3C recommended definitely do have.
So Harold, I'll try to answer that question. So this is the first time that we are working with a contributor who's contributing a concept set. We have worked with collaborators who have contributed cohort definitions, and we have metadata, extensive metadata on those cohort definitions available in both structured and unstructured format. So we can leverage that experience of capturing structured and unstructured metadata for cohort definitions for the concept set. But again, we are learning from you right now because you N3C has more experience on concept set metadata than I think the contributed cohort definitions that I have seen in the Odyssey. So this is a collaboration opportunity for both the groups to learn from. Does that clarify your question?
Yep. And I take it I could see the current state of the metadata just by going to the library.
Yeah. So the current status of metadata for cohort definitions are in the Odyssey Phenotype Library, which is a exposed GitHub repository. The structured forms are in the GitHub repository. The unstructured form are referenced in the Odyssey forums, and that allows for the community to engage in discussions and provide their insights.
Yeah, we have a comment section of each concept set, but I can't say that we have a lot of discussion, to be honest. But,
so I think from a
a concrete suggestion, Gowtham. So we got like Kyle Sullivan, our colleague at Katoffs is on. He's one kind of posted this. Kyle would have time, and Jared Hoteling and our team would also have time to take something that's a concept set and transform it into a cohort definition. It's not a lot of work, right? I think just if we have what you need to do in order to qualify as a cohort definition, I think we can kind of get past that in a one-by-one basis. If we say each of these things coming from N3C was transformed originally from a concept set into a cohort definition by having, a date, when you get included into the cohort, how you get excluded, et cetera. There's a formula that could be followed and done in a uniform way for each of these, and the associated metadata for the concept sets in N3C could be attached to those cohort definitions, since that's what they're designed for in N3C. I think we should just kind of, if we agree that the kinds of metadata there are generally relevant and can be reused in this way, I think unless there's objections to it, I would like to kind of move to practical steps of making progress on doing that task, because we have people and the intent and the alignment all figured out, and we've been kind of talking about it for a long time. I'd love to just kind of like say what those next steps are so we can kind of get some tasks done.
Exactly right. Absolutely. You read my mind, Andrew, and thank you for leading that conversation. I think, so absolutely. So I think we can now talk about actionable steps. Like you just said, it is possible to convert concept sets into cohort definitions using some formulaic way, and that allows you to with some amount of work, make the contribution as a cohort definition instead of a concept set. Now, if that is a constraint, the community still wants your contribution, and we will try to figure out how to accept concept sets as a contribution instead of cohort definition. We may need to think about it a little bit more, but our existing framework supports and accepts cohort definitions very easily. So if you are able to convert concepts into cohort definitions, good, we are all set. It will fit in very easily.
And to be more specific, it's not if you are able, because we can do that on our side too. The question, if you are okay with converting those concepts into cohort definition, we can manage the pragmatic steps as well, or we can do it together. But as long as you are okay, as long as you're okay with this, we can.
Yeah, we if anybody actually uses our concept sets, we're thrilled with that.
And we can do it in a way that doesn't transform the clinical meaning of anything. I think that's, I mean, the transformations don't have to have any impact on it. And so all of the kind of metadata that pertain to the concept set as defined, I think longer term, the OHDSI community needs to revisit its nomenclature for this. It's just profoundly confusing. And we should clearly distinguish, where separation of needs. You need some things to run the OHDSI machinery and call things a TSC or an O. And that should not be bound up with how the entire observational health community thinks of phenotypes in a way that just creates endless confusion. I know I keep harping on that, but
Agreed.
that's a longer term thing. And pragmatically short term, we can just start working on this with you guys.
So pragmatically, we have agreement of working together on taking the recommended concept sets from N3C and working collaboratively to convert them to cohort definitions and into the OHDSI Phenotype Library. So let's first talk about volumes.
Gowtham, you have a question. You have Joel. I see hands. You have Joanne, and then Joel.
Great. Just real quick, does your phenotype metadata, or cohort metadata, does it allow for the version of OMOP?
So the cohort definition itself has a version number. The cohort definition is designed to work, is designed to be compatible with OMOP CDM version 5. And it is by design backward or forward compatible within the version 5 version number. The issue usually comes when the vocabulary changes.
Right. So we're focusing on the vocabulary. That's what we're talking about.
Right. So the vocabulary version changes the resolved concepts. So if you have a parsimonious expression that is reliant on SNOMED and has 4 SNOMED codes, that when resolves leads to 500 ICD-9 codes or an ICD-10 codes. When the vocabulary version changes, it is possible that the number of resolved codes changes. Now we have a system to track it and provide the deltas, but we do not have a systematic way to understand the impact on the cohort definition.
Yeah, I'm sorry. We're aware of that. I'm just asking, does the metadata have a field that says which version of the vocabulary this was built on?
You can contribute that as part of your contribution. It will be documented in the library.
Okay, so we might still want to work on getting that as an action item on our end, Harold. Maybe it's an optional action item.
Right. No, clearly aligning the metadata is a really important part. In other words, you have direct availability to all the concept sets as it is. The JSONs and everything is available, but the how to map from our metadata to yours requires at least just a little group to pay attention to that.
Yep. So can we talk about volume? So 9,000 concept sets creating
No.
9,000.
No. The N3C recommended is only about 100 concept sets.
Okay. Perfect.
And then you have Joel Gowtham, just don't forget.
Oh, Joel, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to see, before we go down the road of, I don't know, converting the concept sets into cohorts, simple cohorts, just to think about the utility of keeping them as straightaway concept sets that are then reusable pieces that can be put into any type of cohort definition that we're interested in. It just makes it easier to use, and I think have a lot more utility to them.
Yeah.
Well, by definition, when you bring them as cohorts, remember, by definition, when you bring them as cohorts, they enter the concept set repository. All what you need is maybe flag the names of these concepts with the NC3, so you can retrieve them and know that those are the NC3. But once you take them to the Atlas instance as cohorts, by definition, the concept sets go into the repository of that Atlas concept set. Okay,
I
so
think corrections to what you just said. I'm sorry, but Joel, the contributor concept set is preserved as is in the cohort definition, and a downstream user can extract the concept set from the cohort definition and use it as a building blocks for another cohort definition. And there are software in Odyssey, like Chris Knowles, author of Circe, that has a function where you'll pass the JSON, extract the concept set, and make it available to you to create another cohort definition. So we have that.
That's what I meant. Yeah, that's what I meant.
My recommendation, though,
but
is
it's not automatic.
Just do both. Just bring them in as concept sets, reference that concept set when we create the cohort definition from, so people don't have to go through the trouble of extracting it. So it'll be available, and it'll have the same kind of like this. It'll have a naming convention, derived from N3C, et cetera. I also want to ask Joanna to comment on, there's apart from N3C, this is slightly confusing, so I hope it doesn't add too much complexity here, but I think there was a lot of work done, particularly at Hopkins, to go through the VSAC definitions of things. So there isn't the same kind of empirical evaluation of all of those that we're talking about here for the N3C recommended, but it is derived from an authoritative source. So we're talking about authoritative views versus empirically validated views of like what's trustworthy. And but there was a fair amount of effort to kind of go through the things that are in VSAC. Go ahead, Harold.
Right, but we ended up, I'm kind of driving, so I apologize, but we kind of dropped that effort precisely because of the mapping from ICD to SNOMED turned out to be problematic. And I think there was a poster about this. Siggy Gold presented it the last time.
Yeah, I know.
But precisely because of the post-coordination issues, we couldn't rely. So the problem is that while the ICD-10 set was authoritative, the SNOMED mapping was no longer authoritative. So we were stuck we're right back to where we started from. And poor Johanna had to put up with us spending 6 months discovering that she needed us to get her useful concept set.
I saw the problem coming, but it was still an important exercise that was completed there. I think, this goes back to Aza's comment, like you need to build a concept set in the vocabulary where it will be used, right? So if you're using OMOP standard vocabulary, you need to build your concept set there. Whereas if you build in another one and do a mapping, then you might map to some very high level parent code somewhere, in other vocabulary and include a bunch of things you didn't mean to include, that type of thing. So the clinical intention has to be evaluated in the vocabulary, used for the concept set. But the comment I can add about it, Andrew, and the value of everything that was achieved with that was we did use those for comparisons in the process. So as we built the N3C recommended, we always compared to the VSAC and HCUP concept sets as just a reference point. Did we miss anything? Is there something out there, right, somewhere on the tree that we haven't thought about? So even though they are sometimes way too broad, it did occasionally highlight something that we did not find ourselves using searches and the atlas exploration and source codes we're familiar with, etc. So it was valuable.
The reason for bringing it up here is like, so I can foresee the next steps being, we're going to start working, it's our Tufts team, maybe in collaboration with Aza and Gowtham, on the transformation, import and transformation of the concept sets into cohort definitions, and with the, wherever there is alignment with the metadata that's captured being, put into place there. I think we've got this broader mission of creating N3C as a, an active participant of all OHDSI studies and a member of kind of that hub. I think alignment on back and forth, as we get things that are developed in the OHDSI community back into N3C is something that's going to enable. Another is just these things that have a place. They aren't sufficient, but the kind of work that's done to get a VSAC definition approved isn't all the work that needs to be done to come up with an authoritative concept set, but it's an important step, right? It's an important thing. A lot of experts looked at things and thought about it very deeply. And that is one of the things you do when you're developing a valid concept set. So some understanding of where that work.
Andrew, I'll just point out though,
You're breaking up too much to understand, Harold. Sorry.
The choices were made. I'm gonna have to sign off, or I gotta go.
Yeah, I guess
Sorry.
I'll try to read his mind here. I think there's potentially concern about putting some. We just wouldn't want to call it VSAC. We'd have to make sure we called it like an expansion of the VSAC concept set, OMOP mapped expansion, so that people don't use it off the shelf thinking that they are only selecting codes that were the, determined by VSAC.
And without working the problem, all I want to do is define the scope of engagement really between my Tufts team and both N3C and the OHDSI Phenotype Libraries on that separate set of things, knowing that they are not sufficient, knowing that we don't want anything like an off-the-shelf use of them, knowing that they aren't a transparent window on what VSAC actually meant. They're still valuable.
Yes.
Should there be anything whatsoever to do with them? Because there was a large amount of effort to kind of curating amongst all the VSAC definitions that were there, which ones had some kind of empirical backing at all and were worth kind of, because there's a zillion of them. There was a lot of curation that went into their original development and then their selection amongst the large set that are there. And so, but they seem like some part of a process that both the N3C and OHDSI communities should find a way to engage, not anything like off-the-shelf use, not anything like transparent window, but still like how to leverage that. Should we be thinking about doing anything, or is that a future conversation best left,
Yeah, so Andrew, thank you. So I think this stepwise process would help us move forward in a very concrete and pragmatic way, and that would mean that the collaboration would be successful. So this is my proposal. Step one, we all agreed we have about 100 concept sets that N3C would like to contribute and OHDSI community is interested in. We would like to achieve that by a certain amount of time where that is exposed to the OHDSI community. Right now it is within the Palantir infrastructure and some of it is exposed in the Zenoda infrastructure. It appeared to me based on my preliminary review that Zenoda has it in the PDF format, which means that it's not computer readable. So we need to have it extracted in a certain way that is more computer readable format. So step one, find those 100 concept sets that N3C would like to contribute to the OHDSI community. Step number two, I think, is where the critical thinking is involved. There is metadata. There is also what Andrew just talked about, disclaimers or recommendations from the creator, maybe even some commentary, unstructured insight. There's also attribution. So these are high priority metadata metadata data about this concept set that needs to be documented. And so we need to understand from you, from your experience, what is your high priority metadata information. Now, there are metadata that are.
Sorry, real quick. That's answered, and it is in all of the N3C recommended, and that's consistent.
Perfect.
The intention, limitation, all. There's nothing unstructured. I mean, it's all strings with structured fields.
Perfect. So we just have to be exposed to us because we don't have access to Palantir, and that's the whole idea here. So if
It
you
is exposed. It's in Zenodo. All of the N3C recommended are in Zenodo with their metadata. So that is available now. Yeah.
Perfect. So it sounds like step 2 would be pretty straightforward also. Step 3 would be to provide a documentation, the documentation so that anybody in the OHDSI community can read it and understand it. Some of the attributes that that Harold told about, like the review from informatician from a negative predictive value perspective, and from a clinician from a positive predictive value perspective, and so on and so forth. I think that type of process documentation of the important work that has gone through should be made visible to the community so that we can understand from and also provide credit for the work. Go ahead, Adam.
Just clarification here for that particular step. You don't mean pair concept set. We mean the whole description of the process, so people who are not part of this call know what we're talking about. And that could really be a forum post that is a copy of your EMEA abstract if you're submitting this to EMEA. It just provides the references and the high level context. So if somebody 7 months from now have no idea of this conversation, open this phenotype, is able to click to a link that will take them to the context of what is NC3 and what they did for the concept set. So that would really, if you already did a forum post, if you already did an EMEA abstract, that would technically be it.
Okay, can you just add that to step 3? Say when you say provide documentation, you say in the form of a forum post.
Yep.
And then maybe, oh, you said, I'm sorry, you had that via OHDSI form. Yeah, excuse me. And that would be the EMEA abstract.
Yep.
And if you just put that note there, EMEA abstract, then we will, thank you, capture what we talked about.
We want to make it easy for everybody. We do not want to make it onerous.
Yeah, thanks.
And then now comes to the technical transfer format. So we want it to be in a computable format. We want it to be easy for everybody. So we need to extract it from Palantir. And the unit is the Atlas Web API compatible concept set.
It's not from Palantir. It's in Zenodo.
Okay.
Unless you want us to do the pipe. So we did have an automated pipeline in place that took it out of Palantir and published to Zenodo. But I think the preference would be for you to be able to pull from Zenodo. And it's all in the structured format of those files. And I think, as Andrew was saying earlier, there's a Zenodo ID, and then for the container of the concept set, the named concept set, and then there are the versions underneath it with metadata for the versions, and those have their own Zenodo IDs, but they are linked.
Are you talking about exporting from this one? Like you're basically saying you'll. I'm sorry. Could you please clarify? Like, is the idea for somebody in the OHDSI community to independently go to the Zenodo website, parse these content, and then make it available for reuse by other members in the OHDSI community?
Yes, I think this would be the source for you all to pull from, and it is.
Okay.
So I think we're talking pragmatically about like Kyle and Jared and other people getting it from here, or I mean, we'll have access through Palantir. I'm not sure it matters. It's going to end up in the place where everybody expects it, and it'll come from either Zenodo.
I think some of the confusion too is that there's no
Okay.
JSON file with this particular record.
Exactly.
I've seen other Zenodo records with a JSON file attached. Yeah, so I think maybe there's the confusion there. And as long as all of the 100 recommended, if you check 8331394, that's an example of one with a JSON.
Yeah,
I don't have access
So
to chat.
the ones
Sorry,
that we're talking about.
8331394. Perfect.
And yeah, if you want to assign this task to Andrew's team, then his team can make a determination if they want to pull from here, or there might be a file in that more tabular form that we used for the push to Zenodo so that we don't have to reverse parse it.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah.
Exactly. You want to make it easy for everybody. So
Yeah.
So the person who's going to do the technical lift is probably me, and I don't have to have the competency to go to Zenodo and parse those.
Gotcha. Yeah. That would be a pain. I see that now. So yeah, we can.
So
we can
if this is the concept set you would like to contribute, which is in, just make it available to in an easy format. I'm just trying to check this concept set out and how it looks like.
Andrew, does that sound good?
I think it sounds good, and even if it isn't perfect, like the details we worked out, really the main thing is we know we have a couple of different ways of getting both the representations and the metadata about them from where they are in N3C into where they need to go to be a part of the phenotype library and the concept set. And and I think that's the main thing. I think there are probably going to be some details to work out about the process, and we don't need to work them here. I don't think. We just need to define that this is something we're going to do and who's going to do it, and then we'll work out the details.
So an example is we also need to do a validity check. Like this concept set expression that's in Zenodo, I just copied it and tried to import it. It's not importing. And that usually means, in my opinion, there is some error in the concept set expression. So we need to check about those things also. But once you get that into tabular format, the tabular format being every row is a unique concept set, it has its name, it has the attribution information, all the metadata that we want to capture, we can easily convert that into something that it is exposed to the OHDSI community in the form of a library.
Yeah, there might be a consistent error here that's being made in that JSON expression. I'm not sure, like maybe there's an extra parenthesis somewhere. I mean, this is working in the enclave, all of them, so there could be something we'll find there. Mm-hmm.
So can I just so the team is aware, in addition to all of those that will need to be transformed, there is one maybe going to be a manual step that will so enable to convert even pragmatically those concept sets to cohort, we need to specify the end date logic. We could say everything going to be at the end of observation period. Yeah, it's the criteria. But I know that something like symptoms or something like especially procedures in a hospital, it doesn't make sense at all. Like it won't fly to say the person had, I don't know, whatever, a certain procedure at that day.
Catheterization for 365 days. Doesn't make sense.
Or till the end of their time in the observation time. So like it's just that it might be just a small flag per concept set if this is a chronic or something that ends within a time frame. Just so that the phenotypes don't look, or the cohort definition don't look like wrong just off the bat for the user.
I would hesitate a little bit to do that. I think that goes back to Joel's comment. It's just can be used in so many ways. And so I think if we could just maybe understand that once you're in these cohorts, you're just in them because it means have they ever had, right? And that's all. So I think if we could be consistent, that'd be better than trying to put times, because the times will vary on a patient basis. And it would require some complex, for example, ECMO. Okay. Right. Yeah. So I think we don't really want to get into that. If we could just maybe define the cohort as this is something you enter, and the definition of the cohort is this has ever happened to you.
And if you have it, it'll always be flagged as.
Yeah, because it's always happened to you. Okay. Yeah, you always had it.
Okay. Okay. Makes sense. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Makes sense. And we can put the logic. We can put the logic description that way. That's fine.
That would be great, especially because the end goal is to get the concept set into Atlas. So thank you.
Yeah, so it will become something like patient had it at this date, and it will be, we'll have to figure out some creative way to justify that, but we can work with you on it. Mm-hmm. So
for number 4, do you mind just saying, instead of extract from Zenodo, can you just say N3C to provide tabular format?
Perfect.
That's actually the best.
Yeah, we'll just agree to that. I think between Andrew's team and myself and Harold, we can do that for you. Yeah.
Just going to say validated JSON just because of the experience that we just had. You know, we want to make sure it actually is a fully working JSON. Okay. So then step number 5, we kind of talked about it, which is how to convert the concept sets into code definition. We're going to use some heuristic for it, preferably with a very simple template. And we'll call it that way, and we'll provide justifications for it. That might impact the applications of some of the definitions, but that's okay. That's part of the metadata. Step number 6 is the metadata that we agreed upon as part of step number 2 will be part of the step number 6. That's how to tag it. And then OHDSI will also add its metadata, standard metadata to it, and then we'll publish it to the library.
Great. And so for step 6, the link to step 3 will be part of the OHDSI cohort definition.
Yeah, so step number 1 to 4 is pretty much weighted on N3C Tufts collaboration. Step number 5, 6, and 7 would be mostly OHDSI collaborators driving it together with you all.
I guess I'm just trying to learn where the link to step 3 documentation, this forum posting that Asa wants to have linked, is that going to live in the OHDSI cohort definition?
It lives in the library. It will be an attribute of every single concept.
Okay, great. So that will be part of what you do. We don't need to make sure it's coming through in our metadata. Okay.
Now, does it make sense when we do step number 4 to agree that it could be the JSON in addition to the common metadata field? And that's going to be small ones, but I'm thinking something like contributors. You have the contributor, right? Already associated. Yeah, and that's important. Like Gowtham, technically, based on our principles, you can't accept something without a clear contributor, so you give acknowledgement. So in addition, like could we get step number 4, the JSON in a tabular form in addition to the contribution?
I think it's all metadata in step 4.
It's
JSON plus all metadata.
Yeah, so for attribution, we collect stuff like names. We also collect like your person's IDs. That's
okay, maybe you can. Maybe you can
collect
set it up
information about organization. Okay. As long as these are valid independent fields on your tabular structure, we can map it to the target.
Yeah, my point is, Joanne, is that some of the metadata is already unified, so it exists in both systems, so it can be transferred along with the JSON, and some others we need to do some gymnastics to take it and fill it. So I'm just saying those that are unified, which I thought of, like attribution is one, can be transformed right off the bat with the JSONs.
That sounds great. So on step 4, would you like to add to that comment there in step 4 to say with metadata named per OHDSI standard when possible?
Yeah, it doesn't have to be perfectly named because we can always rename it, but
yeah.
Do we have those, or Andrew, do you have those? Do you know those?
You can provide those, Gowtham, right?
I think this will get worked out as we start to do the work. I mean, this is all true, but these things need to be specified. I'm just not sure they need to be specified now. I think once we actually have people with some of the examples in hand and we're just starting to work on it, this will all get figured out. I think the main things are like what the steps and who's going to be doing them. And I think we've got those, but I'm not sure we have all the information in front of us, need to resolve each of these things, which are all true. They need to be resolved, but I don't think we can like do them each now. Call's ending.
Yeah, so we are on time. If somebody can volunteer to make a forum post on our conversation, just a quick recap, 4 lines, that'd be awesome. But otherwise, I'm looking forward to getting this done. We did not agree on timelines. Like to get this big chunk of this work done by 2023, as early as possible. Unless you want to talk about timelines now.
No, I think as soon as possible is what I'm hoping for. I think it's exciting that we got movement on this, and we want to start engaging in it like in the next couple of weeks. And
yeah, I'd love.
I think once
podium presentation in November, it'd be great to be able to say this has happened.
Okay, so then this step number 5, 6, and 7, I can give you an estimate. It's about 2 weeks. So if you can get this to me, maybe end of September, if you can make progress on step 1 and step 2, so that we have something. I think we can get it done by mid-October.
Great.
Okay. Thank you, guys. Thank you for a very productive meeting.
Thank you. Bye.